Hi smart people, today we're gonna see how to solve this kind of question. All this equation is basically and just go on and just do some just like let's change the mood and just do some math, good math. So in terms of is to solve any equation, we should have is this the equation are not systematic most of the time. So we have to think about it more creatively. The first thing we have to identify the problem with the equation or with the thing that you want to prove, or the problem just generally. The thing that makes this thing is really hard that there exists a lot of radicals, namely square root of 1 minus x, square root of 1 plus x, and square root of 1 minus x squared. So those three radicals are the main problem behind this exercise, behind this problem. So if somehow we can manipulate those radicals and simplify them, or just do some smart trig substitution, which is the trick of this question, we can solve that thing. So since there is a square root of 1 minus x squared, most of the time in calculus and in those stuff, we just do a trig substitution as the following. Let's put x is equal to cosine of some angle, which is called this angle of u. So with the first one, which is the square root of 1 minus x squared, will be simplified to sine of u. Just a normal substitution, and just you're gonna find the sine of u. And this thing will be simplified into cosine of u divided by 2 times square root of 2. That's because cosine of u divided by 2 is just 1 plus cosine of u divided by 2. So this and that is just equivalent. And the last one will be, and just remember that x is equal to cosine of u, and the last one will be a square root of 2 times sine of u divided by 2. So we put it everything in terms of trigonometric function, which looks good. I've heard any good step is a good step. I mean, any something that you go on is a good step. So this is the administration step. Anything that go on is a good shape. So the square root of 1 minus x, we can factor the square root of 2 from both of them. This will become sine of u divided by 2, and this thing will become cosine of u divided by 2. This will be 6 cosine of u plus 8 sine of u. Whenever we have sum of cosine and sine, we just try to put it as one of them, like one function is either sine or cosine. Most of the time we just using the double angle formula, put it as a sine. So for this one, you just multiply and divide by the magnitude. So you multiply and divide by square root of 2, because 1 squared plus 1 squared, which is the coefficient. By magnitude, I mean the magnitude of coefficient, which is 1 squared plus 1 squared, and this is square root. So this thing will be equal to 10 sine of u plus 2 plus some angle, let's call it theta for now. To see if, before we just wasting all of time and find theta of phi, you have to see if it does proceed or just waste of time. And the left hand side, so this will be 6 squared plus 8 squared. 6 squared plus 8 squared minus 6 divided by 6 squared plus 8 squared. So we did just multiply and divide by the same number, so just by 1. 8 squared. And cosine of u and sine of u. But here we can see that we did proceed somehow, because this thing we say that we wanted to write it as a sum of sine plus sine of u, sine of the angle plus another angle. So this is just sine of u plus phi prime. Well, the coefficient, which is the square root of 6 squared plus 8 squared, is just 10. So what we have right now to find, so it does look beautiful because we can just cancel 10 with 10, and we left us by sine of u divided by 2 plus phi will equal to sine of u plus phi prime. And so on, we can actually continue and to find u. So it's beautiful from here. What we have to right now to slow down and just do the step that we scared to see if it's gonna work or not. We have to find two things, which is phi and phi prime. In case of phi, it will become by grabbing a calculator. So this is a calculator. By grabbing a calculator, we can find that we want some angle phi, that phi is cosine of phi and sine of phi will equal to themselves, which equal to 1 divided by square root of 2, which in this case I think is 45. This is, yes, 45. So this thing will be equal to pi divided by 4. Pi is equal to pi divided by 4. And phi prime will be equal to, we want the cosine of phi prime to be equal to 6 divided by 10. And we want to sine of phi prime to be equal to, we want the sine of phi prime, because we multiply that cosine by sine, so we want the sine of phi prime to be equal to 6 divided by 10, and we want the cosine of phi prime to be equal to 8 divided by 10. Which there's no beautiful phi prime for this one, so you just leave it as this thing and see if things are gonna go further or not. So phi is equal to pi over 4, and phi is equal to pi over 4. So since if we want to just find a solution, we can restrict ourselves to the first quadrant. And we know that the sign in the first quadrant is a monatomic, it's not monatomic, that's a physics bucket. It's a monotonic function. So u divided by 2 plus phi have to be equal to u plus phi prime. So from here we can just solve for phi prime. So u divided by 2 will be equal to phi minus phi prime. So from here u will be equal to 2 phi minus phi prime, 2 phi minus 2 phi prime, sorry, 2 phi minus 2 phi prime, which is just 4 over 2 minus 2 phi prime. Thus we find the u, but we don't want to find the u, we want to find the x. So we can clean everything from here and just go back and to find the x. So right now it looks very beautiful because we just find the u, and what's left is just finding the x. Then x is equal to cosine of u, x is cosine of u, and we find u to be equal to pi divided by 2 minus 2 phi prime, which in turn we know this is a famous trigonometric thing or identity, whatever you want to call it. I prefer to call everything a thing, so this is a famous trigonometric thing. This will be equal to sine of 2 phi prime, which in turn will be equal to 2 sine of phi prime cosine of phi prime, which is just 2 times 6 divided by 10 times 8 divided by 10, which is just equal to 24 divided by 25. So this is the solution, this is x. So if we have problems like those ones, that looks really complicated, and we don't just go and stupidly and just fucking square everything or just fucking mess things around. No, bro, just calm down and just see what's the problem and try to penetrate it using mind, not using something else, to find the value of x.